I'm not proud of everything I've done. That's not something you're supposed to say out loud, right? You're supposed to say, I've made mistakes, with a sheepish grin and hope the world forgives you because at least you're being honest. But the truth is, some things I've done are more than mistakes, they're sins. Quiet ones. Ones that don't make noise in the light of day but claw at your guts when you're alone at night. My name's Travis. I'm just a regular guy. 37. Grew up in a small town in Indiana where the winters are long and the people are longer in memory. I work as a mechanic. Nothing fancy. My wife, Megan, she's a nurse, works nights most of the time. We've been married 8 years, together almost 11. We used to laugh a lot. These days, not so much. And then there's my brother, Luke. Luke's 4 years younger than me. When he was 10, he was in a car accident with our dad. Drunk driver. Our dad died on impact. Luke survived, but his spine didn't. He's been in a wheelchair ever since. That was 17 years ago. My mom used to say Luke still had all the fire in him, even after the crash. She passed away last year, so it's just been me checking in on him when I can. He lives in a little house 3 blocks away from mine. Close enough to visit, far enough to pretend everything's fine. It started with something small. A late night, Megan asleep in bed. I was bored, scrolling through my phone, thumb hovering over my messages. Instead, I opened a dating app. One I'd downloaded a while ago. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. Just chatting. Just talking. Just looking at pretty faces and remembering what it felt like to be wanted. That was my sin. Harmless at first. A message here, a flirt there. It became a habit. A secret world where I didn't have to be responsible, where I didn't have to feel like the man who couldn't keep his wife smiling. I never thought she noticed. I never thought she'd care. Megan was always so busy, so tired, so wrapped up in shifts and scheduling. We barely touched each other anymore. I figured she was content with the routine. But you only realize what someone's holding inside when it breaks out. I should have known something was off the night I got home early from work. It was a Thursday. Megan was off that night. Said she was going to visit Luke to drop off some homemade soup. She always liked taking care of him, said it made her feel useful. I didn't think anything of it. But as I parked the car down the street and started walking toward Luke's house, I caught a glimpse through the side window. It was only a second, but it grabbed me by the throat. Megan. She was standing in the living room wearing nothing but black stockings and a red thong. Her back was to me, and I could see the slow roll of her hips, the way her hands slid down her sides as she danced. For my brother. Luke sat in his wheelchair, his head tilted up, his face, God, his face was lit up like I hadn't seen in years. Not with pity or sadness, but something else. Hunger. Megan turned, laughing softly, and ran her hands through her hair as she straddled the footrest of his chair. I should have looked away. I should have walked off. But I stood there, frozen, watching. Then I saw him lean forward and kiss her, right at the curve of her backside, just below the strap of her thong. She shivered, moaned softly, and her hand reached back to touch his head, not to stop him, but to pull him closer. Something inside me cracked. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough to know that what I was seeing wasn't just some twisted accident. They knew. They'd done this before. I stumbled back from the window like I'd touched fire. I don't remember walking home. I remember the sidewalk blurring under my feet and the bitter taste in my mouth like I'd just swallowed nails. The air felt too heavy to breathe, too cold for late spring. Every time I blinked, I saw her face, smiling, flushed, lost in something I'd never been able to give her. I didn't sleep that night. Megan came home around 10, like she said she would. She kissed me on the forehead as I sat on the couch, staring at the TV with the volume down. She smelled like lavender and sweat. I wanted to ask, was it good? Did you laugh afterward? Did you cry? But I said nothing. I couldn't. Instead, I nodded and pretended. Pretended I didn't know. Pretended I wasn't coming apart at the seams. For the next few days, I tried to act normal. I watched her. Everything became a clue. The way she tied her hair. The softness in her eyes when she scrolled through her phone and smiled to herself. The slight glow in her skin, the kind you only get from being seen. And Luke, God, Luke, he texted me like nothing had changed. Said he needed help replacing the faucet in the kitchen. I went over there with my tool bag and tried to focus on the job. He made a few dumb jokes like always, tried to talk about a baseball game. I forced a laugh and played along. But all I could think about was how his hands had been on my wife. How long had it been going on? That night, I asked Megan if she was happy. She blinked. What kind of question is that? Just wondering. Are you happy? With me? She didn't answer right away. She got quiet, reached for her cup of tea, and stared into it like the steam had secrets in it. I don't know, she said finally. Are you? I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to scream, I was, until I saw you dancing for my brother. But I stayed quiet. Just nodded. Later, when she went to shower, I picked up her phone off the nightstand. My hands were shaking. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. And then I found it, buried in her deleted messages. A chain of texts. Megan, he didn't notice I wore the same stockings you love. Luke, I noticed. I always notice. Megan, I needed that last night. I feel real with you. Luke, anytime. You bring me back to life. I dropped the phone like it burned. That night, I drove out to the old railroad tracks past the edge of town. I parked and sat on the hood of my car, staring into the darkness. Part of me wanted to scream, cry, punch something. Another part of me just wanted to understand. Why him? Luke had always been the golden child. After the accident, everyone treated him like a glass statue. He got sympathy, love, special attention. And I was just the older brother who didn't die. That's how it felt. But Megan? She was supposed to be mine. The next day, I stayed home from work. I called in sick and waited until Megan left for her shift. Then I drove to Luke's. When he answered the door, he looked surprised. Hey, man, everything okay? No, I said. We need to talk. I stepped inside. He wheeled back, giving me space, his brows furrowed. About what? You know what. Silence. His eyes flickered, just a flick, but I caught it. He knew. He wasn't going to pretend. He rolled backward, turned slightly away from me. You weren't supposed to find out like this. So it's true. He nodded. Yeah. How long? A few months. I sat down across from him, my hands in fists. Why, Luke? She's my wife. She's lonely, Travis, Luke said again, softer this time. His words hung in the air like smoke, curling into the cracks of my brain. I wanted to punch something. Maybe even him. But he was sitting in that damn chair, and not because of anything he chose. I couldn't even hate him the way I wanted to. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to keep my voice from shaking. So what, you thought you'd just step in? Like I'm not even here? No, Luke said, shaking his head. It didn't start that way. Then how did it start? He rubbed the back of his neck. She came by one night, just like usual. Brought dinner, stayed a little longer than normal. We talked. She cried. Said she didn't feel like a woman anymore. That you hadn't touched her in months. That you looked at your phone more than you looked at her. That hit harder than I expected. I looked down at my hands. They were calloused and scarred from years of engine grease and busted knuckles, but now they looked like they belonged to someone else. Someone who'd been careless. She started talking about the way I used to look at her, Luke continued. I didn't even know she noticed. Hell, I didn't know I noticed. But she said it made her feel wanted. Seen. And I just. He stopped. Looked at me. I'm not gonna make excuses. But Travis, you think I don't remember what it felt like before this chair? Before the accident? You think I don't miss the feeling of a woman's skin under my hands? The sound she makes when she... Don't, I snapped, standing up so fast the chair behind me squealed. Don't say another word like that. Luke flinched. For a second, he wasn't my brother. He was just a man who had taken something that didn't belong to him. Or maybe something I hadn't protected. I never touched her without her wanting it, he said. That's not the point, I growled. You're my brother. I know. And I hate myself for it. Silence again. Heavy, sharp. Then Luke said something I didn't expect. She told me she's never had an orgasm with you. I stared at him, stunned. What? She said she faked it. Every time. The words didn't hit like a punch. They hit like a slow cave-in, crushing from the inside out. I had no reply. No air in my lungs. Just a sickening twist deep in my gut. She wasn't trying to hurt you, Luke added. She just wanted to feel something. And I guess I did too. I sat back down slowly. My voice was low, raw. Do you love her? He looked away. No. I mean, I care about her. But it's not love. Then what the hell is it? I think it's two broken people finding a way to feel alive again. I stayed there for a while. Neither of us spoke. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't fix what had already happened. Couldn't go back to being the man who didn't know. The man who lived in quiet denial. When I got home, Megan was still at work. I poured myself a drink, bourbon, the cheap kind, and sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the trees. It should have felt peaceful. But all I felt was hollow. I thought about Luke at 10, before the accident. How he used to sneak out to the barn loft with binoculars to spy on the neighbor girls swimming in their pool. He used to whisper to me about it at night, giggling under the covers, swearing he'd grow up to be a heartbreaker. Said he'd be with every kind of girl, blondes, redheads, the whole spectrum. But fate had other plans. One drunk driver and a steel guardrail later, all those boyhood dreams were locked behind wheels and ramps. I used to feel sorry for him. Maybe I still did. But now, pity and betrayal were tangled up so tight I couldn't tell them apart. Later that night, when Megan came home, I asked her to sit down. She looked tired, her eyes ringed with long shifts and longer regrets. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Just asked the question that had been stuck in my chest like a splinter. Do you still want to be with me? She stared at me for a long time. Then slowly, she nodded. I do, she said. But not like this. Not with secrets. Not with you chasing ghosts in a chat room, and me dancing for your brother. My throat tightened. Why didn't you just tell me? Because I didn't think you'd listen, she whispered. And maybe, because part of me liked being wanted by someone who couldn't have anyone else. I had no words. Only silence. Only pain. That night, I lay beside Megan in bed and listened to her breathing. Soft and even, like nothing in the world was wrong. She had one hand tucked under her cheek, the other curled slightly toward me but not touching. We'd grown so used to sleeping like strangers that her nearness now felt foreign. I stared at the ceiling, my throat tight. She'd told Luke she'd never had an orgasm with me. I thought back over our years together. All those nights we'd stumbled to bed, half drunk on routine and exhaustion. All the times I'd assumed satisfaction because she'd smiled or kissed me after. Was it always a lie? A performance she put on just to keep me feeling like a man? And if it was I the one who pushed her to it? I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the weight of silence. Maybe I was tired of carrying the questions alone. "You love him?" I asked. The room went still. Her breathing faltered. She turned slowly, eyes adjusting to the dark. "What?" "Luke," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You love him?" Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She blinked, once. "How much do you know?" "Enough." She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "Did he tell you?" "I saw you, Megan," I said. "The night you brought him soup. I saw everything." She didn't cry. I expected tears, apologies, anger. But what I got was worse. She looked relieved. "I didn't want to lie anymore," she whispered. I felt the rage rise in me, but it was tired rage, burnt out at the edges. "So you thought the best thing was to crawl onto my brother's lap in thigh-highs and grind yourself against him?" She flinched. "It wasn't like that." "Don't," I said. "Don't say that." She pulled her knees to her chest and stared out the window. "I felt invisible, Travis. Like I was just a body moving through your life. You spent more time talking to strangers online than you did looking at me." "That was just flirting," I muttered. "To you it was," she said. "To me, it was like watching you reach for every woman but me." I didn't have a defense. The messages. The pictures. The dopamine hits from virtual attention. I told myself it was harmless, but deep down, I knew what I was taking away from her every time I chose a screen over her skin. "I never meant for it to happen with Luke," she went on. "I felt sorry for him. At first, that's all it was. But he listened. He looked at me like I was still a woman. And then one night, I danced for him. Just to feel alive." Her voice cracked. "And when he touched me, I didn't feel guilty. I felt wanted. That's all I ever wanted from you, Travis. To feel like I mattered." I sat there, my hands clenched in the sheets. "Did you ever think about what it would do to me?" She nodded. "Every day. But by then, I was already broken." We sat in silence for a long time. The kind of silence that doesn't want to be broken, because you know whatever comes next might shatter you both. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Luke told me once that before the accident, he used to dream about being with every kind of girl he could find. But now he just dreams about being enough for one." Her voice was calm. Almost mournful. "I was never his fantasy," she said. "But I was the one he could touch and not feel ashamed." I didn't know what to say. She leaned back down, curling away from me. "I'm sorry, Travis. For all of it." I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling again. My thoughts spun in circles, choking on blame, pain, and something I didn't expect, understanding. None of this had happened overnight. This wasn't a fire. It was a slow rot. I'd ignored her. She'd found comfort in someone else. And that someone else happened to be my brother, someone who'd already lost everything and didn't think he had the right to want anything again. I hated them both. But I also knew I didn't have the strength to throw it all away yet. Not before I heard the rest. Tomorrow, I'd go see Luke again. And this time, I wouldn't ask why. I'd ask what he remembered about the moment everything changed. none of this had happened overnight. That's what haunted me most. It wasn't some sudden affair, some out-of-nowhere betrayal I could hate her for cleanly. It was slow decay. A splintered plank left too long in the rain. In the days that followed Megan's confession, I moved through my life like a ghost. I still went to work. Still fixed engines. Still nodded at customers. But inside, I was unraveling. And the worst part? I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Divorce? Maybe. Forgiveness? I wasn't sure I had that in me. Not yet. What kept circling back in my mind wasn't just what they did, but why. Megan had been crying out in 100 little ways, and I had been too distracted, too comfortable, too foolish to listen. And Luke? He'd been stuck in that chair for 10 years, watching life move past him like a train he couldn't board. Maybe I didn't want to admit it, but a part of me had pitied him. Protected him. Coddled him. And in doing that, I'd never really seen him as a man either. That Friday, I went to see him again. No warning. Just walked into his apartment like I used to when we were kids. He was in the living room, watching some old action movie on mute, a beer resting in the holder on his chair. He glanced over, expression unreadable. "Didn't expect to see you." "Yeah," I said, shutting the door behind me. "Guess I didn't expect to come either." A beat passed before he spoke. "So, what now?" I walked over, sat on the same old couch we'd spilled soda on as teenagers. The air between us was thick. "I've been thinking," I said. "About you. About me. About her. Travis, if this is just..." "I'm not here to fight," I cut in. "Not anymore. Just, listen." He nodded slowly. "I spent the last few years pretending things were fine. Ignoring the distance. Megan was hurting, and I didn't want to admit it. Hell, maybe I was hurting too. It was easier to flirt with strangers than fix what was breaking in front of me." He didn't say anything. Just looked down at his hands in his lap. "And you? I never stopped seeing you as my little brother in that chair," I continued. "Never thought you were capable of doing something like this. That's on me. I put you in a box. I treated you like you weren't a full man anymore. I didn't want to be your pity case," he said. His voice was low, honest. "I wanted to matter to someone again." "You should have come to me," I said, quieter now. "Before it got this far." I thought about it. Every time he stopped himself. Every time she left, I felt sick. But I couldn't stop. "I'm not proud of it." "You helped her feel something," I said. That's what she told me. And I think, maybe that's the cruelest part. You didn't take her from me. I just let her drift. We sat there for a long time. Not as brothers. Not as enemies. Just two men who'd made a mess of things, each in his own way. "I'm not saying I forgive you," I added. "Not yet. But I'm not gonna hate you for the rest of my life either." He looked up, surprised. "You mean that?" "Yeah. I do." He let out a shaky breath, then nodded. "Thank you." I stood up, my knees stiff. "You should talk to someone, Luke. Not just Megan. Someone professional. There's a lot inside you." He smirked faintly. "You too, big brother." I managed a small smile. "Yeah. Me too." As I stepped out into the sunlight, something in me felt, not healed, but loosened. The pain was still there, sure. But it wasn't all fury anymore. It was grief. And grief, at least, had a path forward. When I got home that night, Megan was sitting on the porch steps, arms wrapped around her knees. "I didn't know if you'd come back," she said without looking up. "I almost didn't," I admitted, walking up and sitting beside her. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. I looked out at the horizon. "I know." She reached for my hand, tentative. And I let her take it. Not because everything was okay. But because maybe, just maybe, we could start rebuilding. One honest piece at a time. The following week, Megan moved out. It wasn't loud or messy. No screaming, no threats. Just a quiet Sunday morning, her suitcase at the door, her favorite coat folded over her arm. We stood in the kitchen, both of us too tired for theatrics. "I need space," she said. I nodded. "I know. I don't know what I want anymore." "Me neither." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but instead, she kissed my cheek, picked up her bag, and walked out of our house like someone backing away from a fire that had already burned everything to ash. I didn't cry. That night, I drank too much. Sat on the back porch with a six-pack, watching the moths dance in the porch light, thinking about how easy it is to lose people when you don't look close enough. Then came the knock. Not on the front door. On the back. I turned. No one was supposed to come that way. Not neighbors. Not delivery people. The light barely reached the edge of the yard. Another knock, quieter this time, almost nervous. I stood, grabbing a wrench from the toolbox beside me out of habit. Opened the screen door and stepped out into the dark. "Hello?" I called. From the shadows, a shape moved. Slender. Wearing jeans, a hoodie, and a cheap canvas bag slung over one shoulder. "Don't freak out," the voice said. It was a woman. "I'm looking for Luke." I narrowed my eyes. "Luke's not here." "I know," she said. "I tried his place first. Neighbor told me you were his brother. That he sometimes comes here." I gripped the wrench a little tighter. "Who are you?" She stepped into the light. Young. Maybe early 20s. Dirty blonde hair in a messy ponytail. Tired eyes. Pretty in a faded, worn-down kind of way. "My name's Sarah," she said. "I think Luke's my dad." The words hit me like a slap. I blinked. "What?" She pulled something from her bag. A photograph, faded and bent at the corners. She handed it to me. It was Luke, maybe 17, no wheelchair, arm around a girl I vaguely remembered from our town's summer carnival. Name was Natalie, I think. She'd moved away after high school. "I found this in my mom's things after she passed," Sarah said. She never talked about him. But I did some digging. Tracked down his name. "I found you through some old mechanic business listings." I stared at the photo. Luke looked like a different person in it. Cocky, full of life. Before the accident. Before everything fell apart. "I'm not sure he even knows I exist," she added, voice soft. But I had to try. I leaned against the doorframe, my thoughts reeling. Luke. A daughter? How could he not know? And yet, maybe he did know. Or suspected. Maybe that's why he'd been so desperate for a connection, for meaning. Maybe Megan hadn't been his first sin. Maybe she was just the latest attempt to reclaim something he thought he'd lost forever. "You better come inside," I said finally. "He's gonna want to see you." She smiled, shy and uncertain. And just like that, the ground beneath all of us shifted again. What had started as betrayal was turning into something stranger. Something bigger. The past wasn't finished with any of us. Not by a long shot. Tomorrow, I'd call Luke. I'd tell him to come over. And when he did, I'd hand him the photo. Because sometimes, the things we bury the deepest don't stay buried. They knock. They find the wrong door first. But they come looking all the same. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry or scared, though maybe those feelings were still hanging somewhere in the corners of my chest, but because everything I thought I knew about Luke, about our past, about what had driven him to this point, had been cracked wide open by a single photograph. Sarah slept on the couch, curled up in the blanket I'd used during football games in high school, hugging her backpack like it was armor. She looked like a kid, and at the same time, she didn't. She looked like someone who'd had to grow up fast. In the morning, I made coffee, and she was already sitting up, waiting. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, brushing a strand of hair out of her eyes. "I haven't really slept well in years." I didn't press. I knew that kind of exhaustion. By noon, Luke rolled up the driveway in the van I helped him buy 3 years ago. I hadn't told him why I needed him here. Just said, "Come. It's important." He knocked on the door and looked surprised when I answered with a face that wasn't angry. "What's going on?" he asked. "She's inside," I said. "Come in." He wheeled past me slowly, brow furrowed. Then he stopped. Sarah stood by the kitchen table, her fingers wrapped around a coffee mug. Luke froze. His eyes shifted to me, then back to her. She lifted the photograph. "This is you," she said quietly. "And my mom. Natalie Kerrigan." Luke's face went pale. "Oh my God," he whispered. He rolled forward slightly, like he was seeing a ghost. Then he looked back at me, voice shaking. "Is this?" "Her name's Sarah," I said. "She showed up last night." Sarah stepped forward, eyes glassy but steady. "You were 17. Mom never told me much. Just that you were wild and funny. That something happened to you, and then she moved away. She died 3 months ago. I found this in her things." Luke didn't speak. His hand trembled on the armrest of his chair. "I'm not here to ruin your life," Sarah added quickly. "I just needed to know. If you knew about me. If you wanted to know me." He opened his mouth, then closed it. And for the first time in a long time, I saw him cry. "I didn't know," he said. "God, if I had. I would have come. I would have found you." Sarah's lip quivered. "I always wondered who you were. Why I looked different from my stepdad. Why I had this stupid crooked smile. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to see your face." Luke looked like he was crumbling and being rebuilt all at once. "You're mine," he said, barely a whisper. She nodded. "I think so." And then, without thinking, without hesitating, he opened his arms. It was awkward with the chair in the way, but Sarah stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. They held each other for a long time. And I stood there watching, stunned by how life can fracture, then offer you a piece you didn't know you were missing. Later, after she left to stay at a friend's house for a few days, Luke and I sat on the porch. He couldn't stop staring at the photo. "She has your eyes," I said. "I used to wonder what my life would have looked like if the accident never happened," he murmured. "If I'd finished school. Got a job. Had a family. But I never imagined this. You've got one now." He smiled faintly, then turned serious. "Do you think Megan knows?" "I doubt it," I said. "This ain't about her. Not right now. I think," he said slowly, "this might save me, Travis. This girl. She might be the only good thing I've done in my whole damn life." "You've still got time to do more good," I replied. "Maybe this is where it starts." He looked at me, eyes glistening again. "And you? What happens next with you and Megan?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But this feels more important right now. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't thinking about betrayal, or hurt, or loss. I was thinking about redemption. And maybe that was the quietest thing we never say out loud, that sometimes, just when you think your story's over, a new chapter knocks at your door. Luke changed after that day. Not in some dramatic way, not instantly, and not into someone brand new. But it was there, quiet and slow, like the way frost melts off a windshield in the morning sun. He called Sarah every day. Started getting up earlier. Got back into painting, something he used to do before the accident and hadn't touched since. At first, it was just sketches of birds or trees out his window. But after a week, he showed me a half-finished portrait of her. She has a fierceness to her, he said. Same as her mom. It was the first time I saw him proud of something again. Meanwhile, Megan and I barely spoke. She hadn't moved back in. She stayed at a rented place near the edge of town. I saw her car sometimes when I passed by, parked alone. No visitors. No signs of a new life. Just silence. But on a Saturday morning, when I least expected it, she knocked on my door. I opened it to find her standing there in jeans and a plain sweater, her hair tied back, no makeup. She looked like the version of her I remembered from years ago, before things got complicated. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I stepped aside. We sat in the kitchen, the same place we'd laughed and argued and lived 1,000 ordinary moments. "I heard about Sarah," she said, folding her hands. "Luke told me." I nodded. "I think that's amazing," she added, a small smile on her lips. Like some part of the universe gave him a second chance. "Yeah. I think it did." She hesitated, then looked down. "I didn't come here to talk about him, though. I came about us." My chest tightened. "Okay." She drew in a long breath. "I've been going to therapy. Alone. Anne. I've realized a lot of things. About myself. About what I did. And what you didn't do." I didn't speak. I let her talk. "I don't excuse what happened. I never will. What I did with Luke, it wasn't right. But I was so empty, Travis. So lonely. I tried to tell you. In small ways, in subtle ways. But you were somewhere else. On your phone. On those apps. In another world." "I know," I said. She looked surprised I didn't deny it. "I really loved you," she said. "Still do, in some strange way. But that love, it changed. And now I don't know if we're supposed to be together anymore." That part stung more than I expected. Even after everything. I looked down at my hands. "So what happens now?" She looked at me for a long time before answering. "I think, we take this as the end of the chapter. Not as enemies. But not as husband and wife either." The finality of it hit like a slow fall. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just the quiet click of something locking shut behind you. She stood, her chair scraping gently against the floor. "Luke's going to need you. So is Sarah. And what about you?" "I'll be okay," she said. "For the first time in a long time, I'm learning how to be." She walked to the door, paused, then turned. "I meant what I said the night I confessed. You were a good man, Travis. Just not the one I needed anymore." And then she was gone. I stood alone in the kitchen for a long time, the clock ticking softly above the stove. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just, changed. Later that night, Luke called. "Sarah wants to meet again," he said, his voice brighter than I'd heard in years. "She asked if you'd come too. She said she wants to meet her uncle." I smiled. "Yeah. I'd like that. Because sometimes, what you lose doesn't leave you empty, it makes room for something else. Something unexpected. Something real." And maybe that's what redemption really is. Not fixing the past, but choosing who you'll be tomorrow.